My name's Gregor Wright, I'm an artist. I live in Glasgow. The thing about science fiction is it's a very sort of fertile ground. It's a very fertile, imaginative zone. The sort of interesting thing about science fiction is that it's a way of talking about society, I suppose, and wider sort of anxieties. And it's just a way of doing it that's very interesting. It's just really not very boring. So I guess the thing about the figures is they have this kind of generic quality to them, but because they're kind of like undefined in a way that it's possible to respond to as a human in some ways or something, then they have this eerie quality to them because they're slightly skeletal and they're slightly almost robotic. So they sort of emphasise death rather than life, maybe, or certainly unhumanness in some way. And I chose to mess around with the eyes because that's another quite direct way of talking about things in a semi sort of symbolic way. I ordered a ton of clay and then I had to figure out what to do with it, so I thought I'd make some dinosaurs. The reason for that was I think they're like a really good, like a cipher, like a cryptographic key or something like that. And they sort of span a gap between fact and fiction and collective unconscious. They were also quite good to make in your hand with a bit of clay. And it seemed appropriate that you were actually making these things out of, painted them, had to colour them, which is also a kind of thing about dinosaurs in terms of what colour actually were they. It's an interesting question, I suppose, if you think about it, but it's also completely hypothetical. We're never going to know, really. Don't know if anyone even wants to know, but people probably think about it. And so then after that, I wanted to break them up a little bit and use them as a material so that they had a sort of dual status as autonomous, independent art objects and also just raw material for part of a bigger installation. I treat the paint like a material, like I would any other material, really. But in doing so, I suppose paint itself is so bound up to the format of painting that you've immediately got a fight on your hands. And I like that aspect of it. So I try and start from the ground up again. And I don't necessarily just paint things in the world. They're kind of abstract because that's the most direct way to deal with the form and properties of paint, I think. In the back room there's the resin pieces, which are made out of casting resin and old kind of pieces of junk and clay and stuff like that, and an iPad. I put an iPad into one of them, trying to talk about technology a little bit and also surface the idea of these like pieces of technology we have now, like iPads and iPhones, been really tactile. The name of the show is Dinosaur Expert, I'm Feeling Lucky, and it's in the CCA.